Chapter 568. Hyun-jong's brow furrowed slightly upon hearing the situation from Im So-bong. An internal dispute within Green Forest. The circumstances were highly unusual. Under normal circumstances, Mount Hua would have no interest in the inner workings of Green Forest. However, the issue was that Green Forest's leader currently resides in Mount Hua. And sir, what's your plan? Quell it. Im So-bong's response was definitive. It won't be as easy as that. Nonetheless, it must be done. A quiet sigh followed this statement. Sect leader, you may find it hard to believe, but the fact is, I'm not fond of fighting. Moreover, the sight of blood spills is distasteful to me. I understand. Anyone who had observed Im So-bong over the past few days would respond similarly. Of course, one can never be certain based solely on outward appearances, but over time, people tended to reveal their true selves. I'm not the sort to crave power. Given a more suitable candidate, I would have gladly yielded the position, especially given my frail health. Im So-bong fixed his gaze on Hyun-jong and spoke. Go-hong, the one who is assaulting the Green Forest, is notorious for his violent streak. If such a man assumes the role of Green Forest King, I'm certain it would result in many casualties. Im So-bong, speaking in a calm voice, shook his head. I can't bear to watch this. Listening to all this, Chang-myung snorted in derision. There are good bandits and bad ones. While not incorrect, it wasn't the right thing to say at the moment. Hyun-jong, who wanted to confront him, was taken aback when Im So-bong calmly agreed. Yes, you're correct. And your group are the good bandits. Rather than being a good bandit. Im So-bong's gaze remained fixed on Chang-myung. You already encountered other bandits prior to meeting me. Right. Chang-myung responded hesitantly, tilting his head as if struggling to remember. Then, Yoon-jong whispered into Jo-gul's ear. They say that the one who is fanned can sleep with outstretched feet, yet the one doing the fanning cannot. It appears you've forgotten everything due to the incessant beatings. Wouldn't being hit cause one to forget, Se-hyung? Ah, indeed, you're correct. Correct. Only after Hyun-sang shot him an exasperated glare and asked for silence did the pair promptly shut up and lowered their heads. So, back then, did Taoist Chang-myung indeed punish the people of Green Forest on that mountain by killing them? I don't believe I killed them. Why not? Chang-myung absent-mindedly scratched at the back of his head. Simply because I didn't consider their transgressions severe enough to warrant death. Yes, indeed. You have already made that judgment before meeting me and becoming aligned with the Green Forest. Im So-bong shrugged his shoulders and continued. I think you judged it not due to your deep compassion. Everyone nodded fervently. Naturally, Chang-myung typically displayed indifference. However, he offered no mercy to those who committed wrongdoing. Didn't he frequently swing his sword against evildoers? Im So-bong let out a smile. If it was the Green Forest of the past, you wouldn't have let them go that easily, Taoist. Our Green Forest has been very committed to not harming the civilian population as much as possible. And that is why it stays in the mountains. However, those like Go-hong who have chosen to join the rebellion now are all against this trend. They believe that those who control the mountains, the more impulsive their actions, the more wealth they accumulate. Hyun-jong emitted a heavy sigh. If they manage to seize control of the Green Forest, it's certain to change, likely becoming even more brutal. Once Hyun-jong fell silent, as if he had said all he needed to, Im So-bong quietly addressed him. Sect leader. Continue. Assist me, please. This task is too overwhelming to tackle on my own. They have strength. Despite my predecessor's encouragement, it is insufficient. The Green Forest, a realm where determination and arrogance reign, cannot be steered with logic and reason alone. Hyun-jong's brows furrowed as he stirred his tea with the teaspoon a bit quicker than usual. I comprehend what the Green Forest King is trying to convey. He saw his own desperation reflected clearly. Im So-bong, as witnessed by Hyun-jong, seemed unshakable in his solitude on Mount Hua, never losing his calm demeanor or his smile. Now, that image is gone. However, lost in thought, Hyun-jong heaved a quiet sigh before turning to the other elders. What are your thoughts? This situation is far from simple. Hyun-sang was the first to respond. There is indeed a line drawn in Kango. Reconciling their differences with the Justice faction will never be a straightforward task. No matter the intentions, the world will perceive Mount Hua as interfering in the affairs of the forest. Right. Hyun-sang wore a blunt expression as he spoke. Mount Hua is a place where sincerity and cooperation are upheld. Its core principles cannot be altered now. Viewed with calmness, this is merely an internal dispute within the Green Forest. Historically, the Kango, a justice faction, has never intervened in the conflict between the forces of evil. Hyunjong gave a silent nod of agreement, yet he didn't miss the subtle twitch of Hyunyoung's lips. And you? Why should we concern ourselves with such trivial matters? Hyunjong grumbled, his face flushed red. There's a certain profit if we align with the Green Forest. Isn't their role pivotal in the dealings with the ghost clan that Changyang is planning? Indeed. In the interim, if the Green Forest King happens to lose his power, wouldn't we be like hounds scrambling for poultry on the rooftop? How can neglecting this be of any benefit to us? Hyunjong groaned at Hyunyoung's blunt words. That man and his reasoning. Has Mount-hua ever done anything good simply for the sake of doing good? I must fend for my own sustenance. I have felt nothing but shame these past weeks as I am the one receiving the food served by the disciples. I cannot commend you for a job well done when we aren't even providing our own meals. He insisted they should throw away what Changyang was working on without genuine reasons. In the past, Hyunjong would have scowled and retorted, but now he, too, realized there was truth in these words. His gaze finally landed on Changyang, who sat looking sadly at his fingertips. And what do you think? About this? Yes. Changyang sighed and glanced toward the ceiling. It appears the outcome is predetermined, yet I feel aggrieved because I don't want to proceed. The decision is final then? Yes. So you're implying there's insufficient rationale now, correct? We're concerned about others blaming us. Correct. Of course you may not regard this, but there are occasions when public judgment possesses more influence than one may anticipate, correct? Yes, I'm aware of that as well. Changyang shrugged his shoulders. But sect leader, I fail to see why this is causing you worry. To simplify it, an alliance is formed to uphold righteousness and exercise power for mutual aid. Indeed. Based on his statement, ignoring this situation will simply empower the bandits to create chaos. Can there be a more compelling reason for us to intervene? Hyunjong exhaled forcefully. You're correct. That's absolutely true. But the question is, will the world understand our intentions? If they cannot comprehend, we shall make sure that they do. Pardon. There is someone present who can facilitate this understanding. I beg your pardon. Changyang signaled towards Im Sebaung. However, Hyunjong was unable to comprehend and questioned back. What does that imply? Why are you so sluggish at grasping things today? If the people heard this man's words, it would be clearer, correct? Correct. He just needs to make that statement publicly. All we need to do is formally request assistance from Mount-hua on behalf of the Green Forest King. A look of confusion washed over Hyunjong's face. So? Yes. The Green Forest King should formally ask Mount-hua, please assist me in doing a good deed for the bandits. Yes. And for sure, Mount-hua will offer, absolutely, he'll assist in dealing with the bandits. So we proceed to help, correct? That's it, actually. Hyunjong glanced at Changyang, his expression suggesting he was wondering, has this guy genuinely lost his sanity? Good lord. Does that even hold water? What doesn't seem logical here? How on earth would bandits be noble enough to request assistance? We'd be fortunate if we don't end up captured and thrashed by those very same rogues. No, there are worse bandits out there. So, you're saying a good bandit doesn't take money? Right, they just steal it. Ah, indeed. Im Sebaung gazed at the ceiling, amused by their odd conversation. He let out a sigh. There is no such thing as hell. The sect leader still seemed to pay attention to the opinions around him, but he couldn't help raising his voice in front of the Green Forest King, passionately arguing about robbery that a nobleman had had. I should have just gone to Shalon. Why did he have to journey to Mount-hua? Ha ha ha. Having regained his composure, Hyunjong cleared his throat and concluded the conversation. If your words are to carry any weight, the world must recognize that the Green Forest, who are now pleading for assistance, are not evil. However, to them, they're nothing more than bandits. So it's our job to change that perception. But how? Sigh. Oh, sect leader. If a person lives without money, they wouldn't know how to use it, even if someone gave it to them. Similarly, if you live without power, then bestowing power upon you will not make much difference. Such is the truth. Instead of awaiting the rumors to come on their own, we can initiate them. We disseminate tales of the Green Forest King's position. We employ beggars to use the beggar sect, dispatching ghost sect disciples across the Central Plains to disseminate this information. Then, we pass the news to the Sichuan Tang family, creating a stir. Hyunjong reacted with shock. See, could such a plan truly be effective? Why wouldn't it be? Changyang nonchalantly shrugged his shoulders as if it was of little consequence. We're not fabricating non-existent words, just broadening their application, and there's nothing wrong with that. If the Green Forest King relinquishes something, everything will conclude. Chang Yang observed Im So-baung, who recoiled slightly. What exactly are you suggesting? The tax. Excuse me. Half. At these words, Im So-baung's cheek trembled. The tea-toll tax is fundamental to Green Forest. If you wish to honor your heritage and free yourself, follow your desires. The situation appeared to allow no compromise. Im So-baung firmly shut his eyes. Yet, Chang Yang wasn't finished speaking. Rather than simply accepting money and walking away as you've been doing, alter your strategy. What are you suggesting? Conflicts occur when individuals believe their money is being stolen. Rather than intervening midway and causing chaos, as you do now, stand at the mountain's base and guide those who pay the appropriate tax. Continue until the mountain's end. Those who ascend the mountain at night carry many fears within them, so lend a hand. Be the most reliable guide. Just because you don't climb the mountain doesn't mean you perceive it as easy. Correct. Even when traversing the mountain, which is known to be untouched for use, inquire whether they would prefer escorts or to wait until a group gathers for safety in numbers. Green Forest can replicate what traditional escort services do. Discard all those damned animal skins and those axes. Dress your men in neat attire. Teach them to smile. Transform your bandits into escorts. Ads by Pub Future. Conflicts occur when individuals believe their money is being stolen. Rather than intervening midway and causing chaos, as you do now, stand at the mountain's base and guide those who pay the appropriate tax. Continue until the mountain's end. Those who ascend the mountain at night carry many fears within them, so lend a hand. Be the most reliable guide. Just because you don't climb the mountain doesn't mean you perceive it as easy. Correct. Even when traversing the mountain, which is known to be untouched for use, inquire whether they would prefer escorts or to wait until a group gathers for safety in numbers. Green Forest can replicate what traditional escort services do. Discard all those damned animal skins and those axes. Dress your men in neat attire. Teach them to smile. Transform your bandits into escorts. Ads by Pub Future. Im So-baung's eyes widened as he looked at Chang Yang. Is this man out of his mind? Despite the question, Chang Yang remained undaunted and assertively inquired. Why? What's wrong? Well, Chang Yang, it's not that I haven't considered it. But would anyone capable actually resort to banditry? Im talking about control. Control. Chang Yang's eyes widened in surprise. If that issue is resolved, there won't be any other problems, correct? Of course, but the control issue. We'll handle that ourselves here. So, there's no need for you to worry. Ha! We've endured much from the Sasok and Sehyungs, it's time to release that grudge. Though Bak Chon had no clear idea about Chang Yang's statement, he, along with the crowd behind Chang Yang, agreed by nodding, arms folded. So, is everything settled? Chang Yang turned towards Hyunjong and spoke. The Green Forest is effective at suppressing rebellions and becoming beneficial for the common people who consequently can lead less violent lives. Furthermore, Mount Hua does nothing wrong. In fact, it can be seen as a transformed Green Forest that has aided the local population. Your earnings will provide significant aid in this cause. Correct. Chang Yang grinned, registering the conviction in Hyunjong's words. Everyone benefits, so I see no reason to dispute it. Of course, the decision ultimately rests with the sect leader. Upon hearing everything Chang Yang said, Hyunjong was lost in thought with a stern expression. I definitely said that the kids need real-world experience. As Chang Yang pointed out, this offers an opportunity to gain not only justification and practicality but also experience. Moreover, it could capture Central Plains' attention towards Mount Hua just in time for the Alliance's official announcement. This situation didn't merely symbolize killing 3 birds with 1 stone, but rather 4 or 5. Chang Yang. Yes. But didn't you express frustration about not wanting to participate? What happened to that? That. Responding to Hyunjong's query, Chang Yang cast a glance at Im So-baung. It's not that I don't stand to gain anything, but it feels like I'm aiding this snake without a justified cause. So, after you've made your decision, sect leader, I would appreciate it if you could leave the room. Elder Hyun Yang and I need to deliberate on what our compensation should be. Observing Im So-baung's slumped shoulders and downcast head, it was nearly impossible to differentiate who represented justice and who was the bandit. Ahem. Hyunjong cleared his throat, scanning the room filled with spectators. What are your thoughts on this? What's there to debate? Chang Yang is correct. If events transpire as he has planned, we won't have cause for objection. However, we should first meticulously establish a cause. Upon hearing Hyun Young and Hyun Sang's statements, Hyun Jong gazed at Im Seobyong with a grave expression. Is it possible for the Green Forest King to agree with all of Chang Yang's proposals? I stake my life and give my word. Determination filled Im Seobyong's face. Eventually, Hyun Jong gave a slow nod in response. Since everyone's opinion aligns, I will sanction the task of assisting the Green Forest King and securing the Green Forest under the authority of Mount-Hua-sect leader. Thank you, sect leader. Im Seobyong bowed immediately. Hyun Jong considered him with a gentle smile, expressing his thoughts. King of the Green Forest, please remember our intentions to assist you and perhaps give a little more thought to the people. Indeed. Yes. After speaking, Hyun Jong rose, prompting the others to silently follow suit as though they had anticipated this moment. The only ones who remained unmoved were Chang Yang and Hyun Young. Now, let's talk. As sect leader. As Hyun Jong hastened out with the other disciples, Im Seobyong found himself alone in a room with Chang Yang and Hyun Jong. Hee. So. Wearing a grin, Chang Yang strolled over to Im Seobyong's side. Shall we begin now? Moreover, Hyun Jong gradually moved in the opposite direction, seemingly blocking the escape route. Im Seobyong tightened his grip. These are true devils. Who claimed that Taoists would renounce worldly desires? They were even worse than bandits. Chapter 569. Do you intend to proclaim this to the entirety of the Central Plains? Indeed. Hong Dae-kwang stared at the paper Chang Yang handed over, his expression blank. This? Correct. Isn't this a stance originating from the Green Forest? Why is Mount Hua getting involved? Because the King of the Green Forest resides in Mount Hua. Whom? The King of the Green Forest. I beg your pardon. Is this gentleman hard of hearing, perhaps? Hong Dae-kwang couldn't help finding the situation absurd, staring at Chang Yang in disbelief. No, why is the Green Forest King here? I heard H has arrived. Arrived? Hong Dae-kwang's eyes, more than his words, expressed shock. What on earth is happening in this corner of the mountain? Yet, Chang Yang merely clicked his tongue, seemingly disconcerted by such a potent reaction. So, please spread this information among the beggars throughout the entire Central Plains. Yes, I carry the title of a branch leader in the Union, but I lack the influence to mobilize all the beggars across the Central Plains, even though I'm Mount Hua's divine dragon. Don't concern yourself with that. Pardon. With a welcoming smile, Chang Yang assuaged Hong Dae-kwang's apprehensions. I never expected one beggar to get this done single-handedly. I didn't plan to ask for that. Hong Dae-kwang's cheek spasmed. No, that's a bit. Reality is as such, what else can be done? Do not fret. After all, I don't want to do it either. You'll only do what beggars can. This did lighten his load. But why did his stomach knot up like this? And the rumors. People other than the beggar will spread it. The more who spread it, the better. Ugh. I understand. Hong Dae-kwang heaved a sigh. It appears this man now views me as inept. Such a realization was undoubtedly saddening. Just yesterday, a man with nothing approached him eagerly, prefacing his statement with Mr. Wait a moment. There was never a time like that. Ah, there was one. In the past, he was more human to Chang Yang than he was now. Well, it's worth considering. Upon reflection, this hadn't occurred because of a problem with Chang Yang's personality. No, his personality wasn't the issue. There was indeed an issue, but it wasn't solely his personality. Compared to when he first encountered the divine dragon of Mount Hua, the status of the mountain had drastically changed. In the past, as a minor branch leader, managing Mount Hua was not a challenging task. However, his current position now held restrictions in terms of acquiring information. I need to discuss this with the leader. Building trust with Mount Hua was of paramount importance. Despite the Beggars' Union being one of the 9 great sects, their power mainly derived from information. Should they fail to bring Mount Hua into their fold, the Beggars' Union might find itself in a powerless position. So, we merely need to disseminate this information. Indeed. And while you're at it, please relay this as well. Huh. To whom? This goes to the Ghost Clan, and this is for the Tang family. The Tang family and Ghost Clan. Yes. Hong Daekwang's cheeks were flushed a bright red. Just what is this insanity? Exclamation mark. After this man travelled to the North Sea, it seems they just lost all sense of distance. Was it truly so simple to transport letters to the clans residing in the southern regions of the Central Plains? Nevertheless, Hong Daekwang found he could not bring himself to admit its difficulty. With this man, I always seemed to find myself in the role of the inept one. Eventually, he accepted the letter that Chang Yang extended towards him, giving him a sideways glance. What exactly is your plan? What plan do you speak of? Isn't the current situation rather strange? Really? Are you planning to alert the 9 great sects about this? Chang Yang smiled, observing a speechless Hong Daekwang. Well, that might be your perspective, but novel than at hat. Hong Daekwang felt a chill spread across his chest as if encased in ice. This guy, really? It's not a big deal, but so much weight was attached to that single word. Could it be that the Beggars' Union has a particular interest in this issue? Beggars' Union? Not the 9 great sects. Are you truly a contender for the leadership of the Beggars' Union? I apologize. Hong Daekwang scratched his head under Chang Yang's suspicious gaze. Although he was raised being told he was smart, he felt like a fool every time he conversed with Chang Yang. How did the Beggars' Union even rise to prominence? Indeed, they possess information that others don't have. So, how do you suppose one would increase their value? Hong Daekwang remained silent. The rules of the world all align in a single way. Give it your all. Chang Yang smiled, spun around, and walked away without any regrets. Hong Daekwang, observing the scene left behind, chuckled unknowingly. Why do I feel like there are snakes writhing within my stomach? He swiftly turned as he descended the mountain. Ah! Why do people suddenly pivot like this? Wasn't this effective? Does it not look better? Upon entering the meeting hall, Bak Chan and his group were taken aback by the sight of the Green Forest King's face and instinctively stepped back. The shadows beneath his eyes extended to his chin, making his pale face appear even more gaunt. His bluish lips and lost expression gave him an eerily bizarre look. How much did he endure? I can't even bear to imagine it. If a single person tormenting Chang Yang was hell, then Elder Hyun Yang joining in would make it unimaginable. They pondered over Im Sir Byong's impending fate, their gaze filled with sorrow as they looked at the man. At that moment, Im Sir Byong turned his head, a helpless look on his face, and said, "Please sit down." "Yes." "Are you all right?" When asked if he was all right, he didn't respond, but simply looked to the sky beyond the open door. Life. What was he living for? One simple turn of the head could lead someone to realize that they have found themselves in the wrong place. If you've arrived, please sit down promptly. However, there was a person here who kept everyone's attention completely riveted. Chang Yang tore open a bag of beef jerky as he eyed Im Sir Byong. He then extended a tiny piece of the jerky towards him. "Care for some?" Im Sir Byong, with his strength waning, extended his hand to accept the diminutive offering presented by Chang Yang. However, slap. It seemed as if something thin materialized from thin air, promptly snatching the jerky from his grasping hand. Bak Ah grasped the beef jerky and consumed it in a single gulp. Humans and beasts. Something in this place just wasn't right. Just then, Hyun-jong entered the room and cleared his throat while looking at Hyun-young. Did your discussion conclude successfully? We arrived at a mutual agreement. Hyun-jong's gaze shifted between Im So-byeon and Hyun-young. Looking at Hyun-young's radiant face and the weary expression on Im So-byeon, who looked as though he hadn't eaten or slept for a week, he had a rough understanding of the current situation. Now they're truly pursuing the bandits for their actions. Yet, what had occurred to this man who was formerly just an impulsive Taoist? Hyun-jong, in silence, settled and shut his eyes. Truthfully, from the moment he left Im So-byeon to the two of them, he also became an accomplice. That's all an accomplice could comment on. Yes, Im pleased the discussion proceeded smoothly. Yes, sect leader. Im So-byeon stared at him, wide-eyed, forcing these words through gritted teeth. Very, very clear. Thank you. This grudge, no, how can I possibly repay this favor? Hyun-jong smiled warmly. All people are the same. Upon first meeting Im So-byeon, he was genuinely taken aback by his non-bandit demeanor that exuded civility. However, after a few days spent in Mount Hua, the only impression left was bitterness. Indeed. As we're both quite occupied, let's cut to the chase. How exactly can Mount Hua assist? Im So-byeon let out a deep sigh. Having already given all he had to offer, it was now time to decide what to consume. After consulting with my subordinates, it was clear that around 3 bandit groups attacked the Green Forest. 3. Im uncertain, but I believe the number was definitely more than 5. 5. At that moment, Bak Chon slightly lifted his hand. Yes. Forgive my confusion, but are there 72 bandit groups making up the Green Forest? Yes, officially, we recognize 72 bandit groups within the Green Forest. However, smaller groups exist that aren't part of the forest, but still fall under our jurisdiction. Im So-byeon replied softly, and Bak Chon nodded in understanding. Considering there are 72 Green Forest bandits in total, isn't 5 a small number? You make it sound as if the rebellion of just 5 is a major concern. Faced with the anticipated question, Im So-byeon just smiled. The reason is straightforward. Even among the 72 bandit groups, each one's power is not equal. Most of Green Forest's power is concentrated in the top 10 mountains. It's safe to say that the 5 attacking us held half our strength. Ah. Im So-byeon exhaled a sigh. To confront them, I would have to solicit the support of the remaining 5 mountains. However, currently, only 2 are backing me. Chang-myung, upon hearing this, grinned. You're referring to the Green Forest King. What is that title supposed to mean? Ugh. It's because of my illness. Illness? Isn't it widely known that those with blocked meridians tend to die young? Correct. I have a similar condition, which implies my life won't be prolonged. Who will care for me? After my death, it'll amount to nothing more than dog food. That's why I should have announced it immediately after obtaining the cure from the pill. Im So-byeon spoke with rising anger, his gaze maliciously piercing Chang-myung. Ignoring the venomous stare, Chang-myung nonchalantly whistled and turned his head. Things can happen like that. Im So-byeon, clutching his chest, drew a deep breath as if catching his breath. Regardless, we only need to deal with the 3 of them, right? For the sake of simplicity, yes, that's accurate. Chang-myung nodded towards Hyun-jong. Sect leader. Yes. I engaged a beggar to spread this rumor. The rumor would have circulated widely by the time we reached the bandit group's location. So, is there anything else we need to do? Yes. Hyun-jong nodded solemnly and spoke with a grave expression. Hyun-sang. Hyun-young. Yes, sect leader. Ensure all preparations for departure are completed by tomorrow morning. Relay this to the disciples and prepare them as well, thus ensuring no disruptions to our plan. Yes, sect leader. Upon receiving the response, Hyun-young quietly inquired. But, sect leader, how many disciples should we prepare? All of them. Pardon. We will keep only the bare minimum number of people needed to guard the sect and dispatch everyone else. Hyun-young's eyes quivered at the realization. He understood the implications. Up until now, Mount Hua had engaged in activities like attending the martial arts tournament. They were indeed part of it, but with this progression, the nature of their role shifted. With a determined gaze, Hyunjong faced the congregation. Disciples, hear me. Yes, sect leader. Nearly 100 years have passed since the vitality and strength of Mount Hua began to wane. We've sought stability by minimizing our involvement with the outside world. But we no longer need to stand idle. It wasn't just Hyunyoung. Everyone present understood the implications. A peculiar excitement lit up the eyes of the disciples. Hyunjong couldn't help but smile when he saw their eyes brimming with resolution. Let us now reveal this to the world. Mount Hua is indeed stronger than everyone presumes. Yes, sect leader. Every individual felt stirred up. After decades of seclusion, Mount Hua was finally stepping out into the world. Chapter 570, Mount Hua will explode, 5. That's impossible. No, speak sense, please. Overwhelmed by the fierce opposition, Hyunjong looked at the situation in sheer disbelief. But why wouldn't I go? Do you consider yourself one of us, the sect leader? Nonsense, you can't expect the sect leader to tackle such minor matters personally. Hyunyoung and Hyun-sang were resolute in their stance, spreading a wave of despair across Hyunjong's face. Isn't it common for all the disciples to be led out? Do you find it odd when I do so? It's because of the nature of the task. Hyun-sang shook his head, his expression stern. You're not the leader of a minor sect anymore. Consider this, would the leaders of Shaolin or Wudang guide the disciples into a place like Green Forest? They wouldn't. Because those individuals remained unyieldingly bound to their mountains. Recently, though, the Shaolin abbots seemed to be moving somewhat. Hyunyoung spoke as if further explanation was unnecessary. Anyway, just forget it. Please, take good care of the base. I share the same opinion as Hyunyoung this time. You. A sigh slipped from Hyunjong. These wretched fools. That's impossible. No, speak sense, please. Overwhelmed by the fierce opposition, Hyunjong looked at the situation in sheer disbelief. But why wouldn't I go? Do you consider yourself one of us, the sect leader? Nonsense, you can't expect the sect leader to tackle such minor matters personally. Hyunyoung and Hyun-sang were resolute in their stance, spreading a wave of despair across Hyunjong's face. Isn't it common for all the disciples to be led out? Do you find it odd when I do so? It's because of the nature of the task. Hyun-sang shook his head, his expression stern. You're not the leader of a minor sect anymore. Consider this, would the leaders of Shaolin or Wudang guide the disciples into a place like Green Forest? They wouldn't. Because those individuals remained unyieldingly bound to their mountains. Recently, though, the Shaolin abbots seemed to be moving somewhat. Hyunyoung spoke as if further explanation was unnecessary. Anyway, just forget it. Please, take good care of the base. I share the same opinion as Hyunyoung this time. You. A sigh slipped from Hyunjong. These wretched fools too. Single quote. How long had he anticipated the day when he would command the disciples of Mount Hua, now vastly changed from the past, to take over the world? He hadn't expected him to try to dissuade him in this manner. Hyun-sang paused to consider Hyunjong's perspective and then smiled as if he understood his thoughts. Is the great leader of the Mount Hua sect personally handling such a minor task? Surely, brighter days are ahead. Ah, I see. Though his frustration didn't disappear, it didn't mean Hyunjong was unaware of the implications. It may not be ideal. Despite their attempt to make a name for themselves, ultimately, they were meddling in another faction's affairs. It would seem concerning if the sect leader, the driving force behind the sect, was the one leading the charge. Hyunjong exhaled a deep sigh, akin to a needle pricking a chest bloated with empty air. Instead, focus more, as this is expected of disciples. Yes, sect leader. Rest assured. Hyunjong's eyes dimmed. It is vital to uphold the reputation of Mount Hua. Ellipsis quote. The Alliance will benefit from the green forests and its paving stones, but I can't say just how important it is to establish a solid relationship with them. Two attentive faces turned serious upon hearing this. However, Hyunjong gave them a stern look before continuing. Nothing on Mount Hua holds more importance than the safety of our disciples. Ellipsis quote. The two elders felt the gravity of that voice. If you must make a choice, do not waver. Prioritizing the safety of your disciples will reduce your concerns. Protect everyone, even if it necessitates a sacrifice. Understood, sect leader. Hyunjong replied with an uncharacteristically solemn tone. Rest assured, we understand that the children are the cornerstone and future of Mount Hua. Isn't our knowledge the root of our problem? Hearing you're following him doesn't exactly put me at ease. Are you emulating Changyang now, sect leader? Still tormenting people over a single issue? Phew. Looking at Hyunjong, he shook his head, clearly appalled at such an accusation, before shifting his attention to Hyun Sang. You're in for a lot of pressure. Ads by Pub Future. A soft chuckle slipped past Hyun Sang's lips. Don't worry excessively. We won't have to intervene. Excuse me. Can Changyang manage to stay quiet? Indeed. Upon Hyunjong's acknowledgement, Hyun Sang grinned. The brat has long exceeded us in both martial prowess and inner strength. Our only task is to ensure he doesn't exceed too much. That's going to be the most challenging task. Indeed, but... Hyunjong exhaled profoundly. Then he continued speaking. In any case, do your utmost. Oh my, please stop. We're already 70 years old. Is there truly any need to endure such incessant nagging? At a novel burn at that. This man. We should depart, Sehyung. It seems the nagging repeats yearly. Shall we? Hyunjong gazed at the two, an expression of incredulity on his face. I still have much to convey. Nevertheless, with an air of discontent, Hyunjong rose and exited. A more frivolous smile graced Hyun Sang's features as he followed. Let's depart together. You lot. Hyunjong swiftly rose to his feet and went after the disciples. Bak Chon scrutinized his fellow disciples with intense eyes. Carefully inspecting everything from their clothes to their packages, a frown emerged on his face as if something was concerning him. Collars. Fix your collars. Let's take these bandits down. Yes. The disciple who was called out took a sharp breath, adjusting his collar in response to the harsh words that fell like a cold blade from the mouth. Bak Chon's cool expression was steeped in disapproval. Never forget that each piece of clothing you wear and every action you take represents Mount Hua. If you behave as recklessly as you have done here, I will not hesitate to break your backs. We understand, Sehyung. Lined up beside him, Jo-gul and Yoon-jong both glanced his way before lowering their heads. Why is he being so harsh? Isn't this the first proper expedition for Mount Hua? When we traveled by ourselves, no one paid as much heed. But now, with so many people in tow, we're bound to draw attention, even if just once. Indeed, we'll certainly be noticed. Yet, doesn't he seem overly concerned about it? His stomach appears to have been upsetting him lately. It's not due to that. It was because of Changyang. The elders will guide us, but it's impossible for the two of them to manage every detail. Sasug must be worried. Jo-gul smiled, but then a spark came from afar. Smiling. Ellipsis quote. Bak Chon looked at the two individuals and said, What are you doing? I told you to pay attention to the children's attire. We are doing it now. If any of the Chung disciples cause trouble, your necks will be the first I break. That, Sasuk. What? Changyang is an exception, right? Ellipsis quote. Ads by Pub Future. When Jo-gul posed the question, Bak Chon was speechless. Perhaps it was a trick of the light, but Bak Chon's under-eye circles seemed to have darkened abruptly. But what is Changyang up to? Upon voicing this, Jo-gul, who had been searching for Changyang, furrowed his brow. What's he doing over there? Huh? Where? There. He's over there. Huh? Yoon-jong blinked. Ah. Chang-myung, right? Yes, that's Chang-myung. It struck him as peculiar. Whether because of Chang-myung or not, Yoon-jong had experienced plenty of strife and turmoil in his life. This adversity had honed his senses, enabling him to recognize Chang-myung even from 100 miles away. But just now, he failed to immediately recognize Chang-myung from behind. Why his shoulders slumped? Single quote. Such a sight was indeed rare. Yoon-jong, Jo-gul, and Bak-chon, sensing trouble, hurried to Chang-myung's location. Upon arriving, "Who? What's happening? Who? Ha, ha." They were so stunned they could not utter a word. Anyone who came upon the scene would have likely reacted similarly. Keek. Truthfully, the sight was not a particularly strange one. For there was Bak-ah, front paws propped on her side and belly distended. If not for the black uniform she wore, it could even be considered endearing. Who dressed this beast? Ah, does it also have a plum blossom pattern on its chest? Upon seeing the beast clad in the uniform of Mount Hua, the three were rendered speechless and remained wide-eyed in their awe. Who could have done such a thing? It was me. At that moment, a figure emerged from the crowd, hand raised. Isn't it adorable? Ellipsis quote. The three individuals looked at the newcomer and simultaneously burst into smiles. So. It was her. If it's so, then no one could have stopped her. Despite not being the strongest on Mount Hua, no one there dared to cross Tang So, for they simply could not, even if they wished to. The sight of a needle stuck in their head would evoke the same feeling in anyone, absolutely anyone. Not even animals are disciples. If you consider it, it's not so strange. Some are more beastly than mere animals. I've heard the same. Everyone turned their attention to the man who was larger than the beast. Ellipsis quote. Chang-myung typically wore a smile that stirred anxiety, anger, or discomfort in onlookers. But at the moment, he bore the countenance of a man who had lost his kingdom. Giving the sacred robe of Mount Hua to a creature. What? I think it's adorable. Sasok. Chang-myung gazed at Bak-chon with an expression so forlorn that it appeared as if he could shed tears at the slightest provocation. Is this acceptable? Can Mount Hua really act in such a way, Sasok? Ellipsis quote. Ads by Pub Future. Bak-chon laid a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Compose yourself, Chang-myung. Haven't we already traveled too far to let insignificant matters disturb us? Mount Hua is destroyed. For the first time, Bak-chon felt genuine sympathy for Chang-myung. Keek. What rubbish. I'll skin you for this. Just as Chang-myung was on the verge of grasping Bak-ah, as usual, the elders and Hyung-jong stepped into the hall. Everyone hastily found their spots and rose to their feet. Are all the preparations completed? An-am, who was standing at the front, answered Hyun-jong's query with a wave of his hand. Yes, sect leader. We've completed all the preparations for departure. Hyun-jong stood tall and spoke in a low voice. Now, pay attention. Yes, sect leader. About this task. Let's keep this brief, sect leader. They've been standing for quite some time, so try not to drone on. Hyun-jong's face contorted grimly at the sound of Hyun-young's whisper brushing past the candle beside him. How can someone grow so immature with age? Single quote. Ugh. Hyun-jong heaved a sigh of distaste and called out. Everyone, heed your leaders and return with honor. Yes, sect leader. And when Hyun-jong turned around, Hyun-sang approached him, smiling. Our journey to the Green Forest will be lengthy, so everyone must be vigilant to avoid any complications. Yes. A loud response echoed back. Never forget, you bear the name of Mount Hua. The moment you step beyond our sect's gate, you represent Mount Hua, and Mount Hua represents you. With those words, the sense of responsibility was clearly etched on the faces of the Mount Hua disciples as Hyun-sang continued in a grave tone. Let's depart now. Everyone initiated their movement. Neither the mammoth task of opposing Green Forest nor the weightiness of upholding the honor of Mount Hua filled the hearts of the disciples at this moment. Let's showcase the fruits of our training. Single quote. I have worked tirelessly, and if we must retreat without performing admirably, I will not bear such injustice. I will obliterate everything, even the green forest. Single quote. Their spirits were high as they prepared to head for the sect gate when a freezing voice pierced their ears. If you're so confident, dare to court disaster. Ellipsis quote. Everyone swiveled their heads in response. There was Chung Yang, his eyes red, glaring at them. I will introduce you to the true meaning of disaster. Ellipsis quote. Their hearts, previously filled with excitement, calmed down in an instant. Create an incident, and you'll die. Be cautious now. Single quote. Bandits aren't frightening at all. That man is 1,000 times scarier. Hyun Sang turned around and gave a respectful bow to Hyun Jong. We shall return safely, sect leader. With a serious nod from Hyun Jong, Hyun Yang shouted, signaling the departure. Let's go. The disciples of Mount Hua turned in unison, marching towards the mountain gate. A helpless smile appeared on Hyun Jong's lips. Are you watching, master? Single quote. The face of his forefather, the sect leader, kept reappearing in their mind. Mount Hua is stepping out into the world once again. Please watch over them. This was the moment when the great march of Mount Hua commenced. Chapter 570, Mount Hua will explode. 5. That's impossible. No, speak sense, please. Overwhelmed by the fierce opposition, Hyunjong looked at the situation in sheer disbelief. But why wouldn't I go? Do you consider yourself one of us, the sect leader? Nonsense, you can't expect the sect leader to tackle such minor matters personally. Hyun Young and Hyun Sang were resolute in their stance, spreading a wave of despair across Hyunjong's face. Isn't it common for all the disciples to be led out? Do you find it odd when I do so? Chapter 571, How dare a bandit look into my eyes? 1. Shush. Shush. Thin lines moved around the pure white paper. The letters were created at a speed that no naked eye could believe, filling the largest part of the sheet with black. At a glance, a middle-aged man wearing this luxurious green-colored robe was seated at the wooden desk, dealing with these mountains of documents. Head. The writing sound, which continued for a while, went still at the voice that came from outside the door. The middle-aged man looked at what he had written again and glanced at the door. What is happening? A guest has arrived. A guest. The eyes of the middle-aged man, Tang Gunak, frowned at this. A guest came when I was working. I will need to speak of that to the elders. The words that came out were rather sharp, and the person standing outside the door flinched. That, it is from Mount Hua. The eyes of Tang Gunak shone at those words. Mount Hua. Yes. Tak. He put down the brush without another thought and jumped up from the place. Come in. Yes. The door burst open with the man bowing to the family head. A beggar whose face he had seen several times before came in. The beggar made a bow. I am Ju Pang, the branch head of the Beggars' Union. Beggars' Union. Tang Gunak's sharp glance landed on the guest. Ju Pang gulped at this cold and intimidating gaze. My heart is shaking. Although he came here for the sake of doing business, he never imagined that he would meet the head of the Tang family in person. It did not matter that he was a branch leader. There was a difference in status as big as heaven and land between the head of the Tang family and a branch leader who commanded different things. Normally, all they would have done was hand over this letter at the mansion's gate or look at the head of the family from afar. Who knew that suddenly they would drag me into this place? Single quote. Ju Payang rubbed his palms on his pants and took a booklet from there. This is a letter that Mount Hua of Shaanxi had asked me to deliver to the head of the family through their branch. Perhaps because he was nervous, he said things he wouldn't normally say. This letter was tied to a falcon called the Sea Green Falcon, which is only used to hold the most important news of the Beggars' Union. There might be a slight time difference, but it must have been about just 2 days since the letter came out from Mount Hua. He put down the brush without another thought and jumped up from the place. Come in. Yes. The door burst open with the man bowing to the family head. A beggar whose face he had seen several times before came in. The beggar made a bow. I am Ju Pang, the branch head of the Beggars' Union. Beggars' Union. Tang Gunak's sharp glance landed on the guest. Ju Pang gulped at this cold and intimidating gaze. My heart is shaking. Although he came here for the sake of doing business, he never imagined that he would meet the head of the Tang family in person. It did not matter that he was a branch leader. There was a difference in status as big as heaven and land between the head of the Tang family and a branch leader who commanded different things. Normally, all they would have done was hand over this letter at the mansion's gate or look at the head of the family from afar. Who knew that suddenly they would drag me into this place? Single quote. Ju Payang rubbed his palms on his pants and took a booklet from there. This is a letter that Mount Hua of Shaanxi had asked me to deliver to the head of the family through their branch. Perhaps because he was nervous, he said things he wouldn't normally say. This letter was tied to a falcon called the Sea Green Falcon, which is only used to hold the most important news of the Beggars' Union. There might be a slight time difference, but it must have been about just 2 days since the letter came out from Mount Hua. Give it to me. Yes. Ju Payang was sweating profusely and quickly tried to take the letter to Tang Gunak. But before he could step ahead, the hand of Tang Pai called for him. Come here. Here. Tang Pai politely presented the letter handed to him to Tang Gunak. Ads by Pub Future. Tang Gunak opened the letter without saying a word and checked the contents inside. Tang Gunak's face, which had been cold the entire time, twitched slightly. In a short period, while reading that booklet, his expression changed several times. A wry smile appeared on the lips of the Tang family head, who was quietly reading the document. And the only time Tang Gunak, who typically remained expressionless, showed anything was when he heard news of Mount Hua or Mount Hua's divine dragon. Tang Gunak, who soon read the entire booklet, scratched his chin as if something was odd and asked, "You were told to present this letter?" "Yes, right. I understand. Yes. If there is anything you have to say to Mount Hua, it is all right." With his impatient attitude, you probably wouldn't even be waiting for my response. Although those words were incomprehensible, Zhu Paiyang simply lowered his head. "In that case." And he turned to leave. To be honest, he had no intention of staying more than he should in this place. Even within any normal sect, the Sichuan Tang family was feared. And wasn't the Tang family leader known to be one of the most difficult people to deal with? Unless one had an iron body, they had no choice but to be afraid. But so. Just before leaving, Zhu Paiyang glanced back without realizing it and gulped. It is a fact that is most known that Mount Hua and the Tang family have some form of relationship, but I have never thought that it would be this serious. Occasionally, he would deliver news to the Tang family. However, even when delivering news from Shaolin and Wudang, he had never even caught sight of this room, let alone entered. But he never thought he would come face to face with the Tang family head with just one letter. Maybe their relationship is stronger than it is known. Thinking that he must report this, Zhu Paiyang began to walk swiftly. Tang Pai clicked his tongue, watching Zhu Paiyang move away in an instant. If he walks that way, his feet will sweat. However, Zhu Paiyang had long disappeared from Tang Gunak's mind. His interest was focused solely on the letter Mount Hua sent. The Tang family head quickly rechecked the contents of the letter. Soon, his face was also distorted. What is this guy up to?" "Mount Hua's divine dragon." A faint smile appeared on Tang Gunak's lips. Usually, those who had big events ahead of them would be careful of their benefactors. This was because anyone could be involved in what happened later. However, Mount Hua and Mount Hua's divine dragon seemed to be planning to increase the stake further. Is this fine? Still, the Green Forest. It is true that it will be annoying. If things don't work out right, there will be problems. Yes. I am definitely concerned. But it is okay. The Tang family head, who had briefly spoken, then added, "It is hard for a mere messenger to know what you mean. There is no way that Mount Hua's divine dragon would do something without a thought. On the outside, he might seem like an impulsive person, but he is probably the one who has done the most calculations within his head." Tang Pai noticed Tang Gunak's expression. Tang Gunak, who sensed the intention of this, smiled. "You think I might have overestimated Mount Hua's divine dragon? How can I ever doubt the insight of the head? But no one in the world can doubt the strength Mount Hua's divine dragon holds, but it is a bit strange that he is a topic of justification discussions at such a young age. Discussing the reason is done when you aren't sure of the results." Ellipsis quote. "When my sight and senses do not correlate, one criminal doubts what is seen with eyes, but a noble being doubts his own senses." Tang Pai stayed silent. "You should also make sure that you aren't deceived by being bound to only what you know. I will make sure to keep that in mind. As written in the letter, spread the rumor within Sichuan. It doesn't matter if it is exaggerated a little." "Yes, head. I will get to it right away." Tang Pai left right after he said so. And Tang Gunak looked at him as he walked to the window to see the sky. Things are slowly becoming interesting. But what did the last line in the letter, "I am saying in advance, it would be a good idea for you to prepare a lot of money," even mean? Tang Gunak began to feel a little uneasy then. Chang Yang's actual plan was to have the rumor spread around to some extent by the time they reached their destination. But contrary to that expectation, the rumor spread fast. One of the reasons was that the people in the world thought that the position of Mount Hua was higher than what the disciples thought. It was also the perfect reason to appeal to those without any major events since the tournament. But the biggest reason was, fly a bit more. More, I say. More. Hong Dai Kwang, who was brushing his teeth on the soaring pavilion, did not know how high it was. One of the beggars who was sitting inside the place while writing letters couldn't handle it and began to yell. "Damn it. All because of you, I cannot do anything else right now, and we are all reduced to writing hundreds of the same form of letters, and now you are saying something like this. It isn't like you had to do anything anyway. At best, the most you did was to feed my pigeons. That, where did you get those seeds from?" Huang Gu Gay, the elder of the Beggars' Union, rolled his eyes in anger, but Hong Dai Kwang didn't step back. "Isn't this what Beggar Wang asked you to do?" "You." Huang Gu Gay sighed and looked back at the beggars around him. "Write it down swiftly. Hurry up now. You. Damn it." The beggars writing the letters were now at a point where their arms were almost falling off. Beggars who did not hold brushes collected the letters, tied them to the pigeons in the cages, and then let them fly. Dozens of pigeons flew into the sky at once. Some would go to various branches of the Beggars' Union, while the others would go to other pavilions built around the middle of the Central Plains. Do we have to go this far? Elder, it is because you don't know what is happening to me in there. Do you even have any hint about how much that guy criticizes me for being incompetent in the Beggars' Union? That guy? Just who is that? You. That is a bit hard to answer. Hong Dae-kwang couldn't bring himself to answer and hesitated. People needed to have pride. How could he say the name of a boy who was 20 years younger than him yet constantly ill-treated him? Whatever, this time we have to show Mount-hua-sect the ability the Beggars' Union has. Ads by Pub Future. You. Hwang Gu-gae sighed deeply at that. So it is something you don't have to say. He knew it too well. Hwang Gu-gae was the person who spent all his life handling information from the Central Plains and delivering it based on orders. He couldn't have known just how important Mount Hua had become. Rumors spread fast, but they slowed down at times. The evaluation of Mount Hua by the families in Central Plains had soared. Still, its influence wasn't fully understood by many. To add a bit of exaggeration to the rumors, Mount Hua's influence had long since surpassed that of the 9 great sects, and considering its growth and the recent swift movement, it would surely become one of the best sects in the world. Let me ask one thing. You must have built good ties with Mount Hua, right? Ellipsis quote. You have done all this, but the day comes when Mount Hua kicks open the door and goes for someone else. I will personally crush you and feed you to the pigeons. Ha, ha ha, ha ha ha. Why are you speaking of such an obvious thing? The divine dragon of Mount Hua now calls me uncle and follows me around like a nephew. Mount Hua's divine dragon? Yes. At a novel burn at that. Are you being serious now? You think I would deceive you? Hong Dae-kwang pounded on his chest in excitement as he spoke. Well, it wasn't all a lie. Because it was true that Chung Myung called him Mr. rather than beggar. Hong Dae-kwang, though, had his own meaning for what Mr. meant. I have a firm grip on Mount Hua, so don't worry and write the letters now. Ugh. Make sure you make it believable. Hwang Gu-gae shook his head and obediently began to write the letters. Dae-kwang. I am saying this because Wang isn't here. Yes, Elder. If you really have a firm grip on Mount Hua, it isn't a dream anymore for you to be the leader. The way things are going, aren't you the most knowledgeable person in the Beggars' Union? Of course. But if Mount Hua is really not under your hand. Ellipsis. Quote. Wang will really roast your entire body and feed you to the dogs, so think once again. Cold sweat began to drip down Hong Dae-kwang's body. Do not worry. I am sure. I believe you. He nodded as he stepped back slowly. Then, please take care of the rest. Where are you going now? I should hurry back to Mount Hua now. Don't you think we'll know that we did well when someone gets a favor shown back? Ellipsis. Quote. Work hard. Hwang Gu-gae clicked his tongue, watching Hong Dae-kwang jump down from the place and quickly disappear. He looks like he has a big mouth. He turned his gaze at the pigeons flying in all directions. They say one cannot know what happens in the world. Who would have thought that the day would come when Mount Hua would open the world up with just a few words? It is something to live a long time and see. He. Hong Gu-gae smiled and shook his head as he quickly wrote a letter. As planned by Chung Myung, rumors about Mount Hua spread throughout the world. It spread widely and swiftly. Chapter 572. The crowded bar buzzed with clinking drinks and the sloshed whispers of drunken patrons. Conversations flowed from greetings to nostalgic reminiscences and debates about worldly affairs. Have you heard the latest news? Which news? Mount Hua is challenging the Green Forest. At a novel burn at. Wait, Mount Hua and the Green Forest. Eyes widened among those eavesdropping. What does that even mean? Are you referring to Mount Hua? The Mount-Hua-sect from Shaanxi that caused such chaos at the Worldly Martial Arts Tournament. TSK. Is there another sect quite like them in this world? Of course, it's that Mount Hua. In the past, when the name Mount Hua was mentioned, few even knew of its existence. Nowadays, there was hardly anyone who hadn't heard of Mount Hua. Are you suggesting that Mount Hua is battling against Green Forest? That's the rumor indeed. Astonishing. Their eyes filled with suspicion. Is that credible, though? I heard that Mount Hua rose to prominence, but wasn't that due to the prowess of their fighters? Exactly. Surely, it will take those people at least 20 years or more to become powerful enough to lead the sect, correct? Now, no one doubted the future of Mount Hua, especially those who understood the workings of Kango. In the world of martial arts, Mount Hua had proven that its warriors were among the best in the Central Plains. The uninformed focused solely on the competition's victor, whereas those knowledgeable in martial prowess prioritized the number of disciples who reached the finals. Nevertheless, this assurance of a promising future didn't translate into an inflated view of the present Mount Hua. Strength was merely strength. I've heard that only a handful of the older generation remain in Mount Hua. That's the rumor. It's the sect that nearly collapsed under its debt, isn't it? So, you're suggesting that the primary members are tournament contenders, spearheading a battle against Green Forest, one of the evil sects. Isn't it bordering on overconfidence just because they've gained some recent popularity? Everyone clicked their tongues. It was an instinctual response. Shenzhou's 5 hegemons was placed on par with the 9 great sects. Naturally, if the 9 great sects were to clash with Shenzhou's 5 hegemons, 9 out of 10 people would back the 9 great sects. However, this was simply due to the fact that the number of sects they held outnumbered the 5 hegemons. The 5 hegemons of Shenzhou was unquestionably not a force that the 9 great sects could casually dismiss. Any sect, such as the Shaolin and Wudang, claiming to lead the 9 great sect may revel in the claim. Yet, some among them appear weaker and not comparable to the strength of the 5 hegemons. The Green Forest, part of the 5 hegemons, along with Mount Hua, were both attempting to re-establish their prominence once more. Clearly, it was obvious without needing any thought. At that moment. That appears to be a slightly different story than the one I've heard. The voice floated over from an individual seated at the neighboring table. Who might you be? Merely a passerby. The gossip has already reached the upper town, yet appears not to have filtered down here. The man grinned as he elaborated. From what I have gathered, it seems that this occurred due to rebellion within the Green Forest. Ah. Rebellion. The crowd visibly recoiled at this revelation. The man's words were calm yet portentous. I've heard that rebellion is brewing within the Green Forest, with some seeking to oust the current king and seize control. So, there are factions within the bandits that are even more ferocious. Have you not heard the whispers about the place? Are you referring to the place notorious for being difficult to escape? The infamous. Indeed, I suspected as much. They initiated all of this. Rumors suggest they aim to control all other bandit groups. But, is it even logical? The listeners grew pale at this revelation. The other sub-bandit group was widely known for its notoriety. How many bandits were there in the Central Plains? And how many were in the mountains? Among the bandits who adhered to the same codes, one group had distinguished itself, a testament to its power. Ads by Pub Future. No, if such a thing would occur, who would dare venture into Mount Hua? Nowadays, even if you run into bandits, you can still pass unhindered, provided you pay their approximate demand. I've heard even the most formidable escort services fail to compare to the might of the great bandits. So, that isn't the real issue. The Green Forest King demands. The speaker cleared his throat as if parched, casting a longing glance at the bottle. May I have a drink first? Of course. What are you waiting for? Quickly, pour him a drink. Why yes, right away. The person clutching the liquor bottle nervously filled the man's glass. Ah. After downing the drink in one gulp, the man smiled wryly and resumed speaking. I've heard that the deposed king has gone to Mount Hua seeking aid. If this situation persists, it's evident that common folks will bear the brunt. Thus, I implore you to help. Ha, my god. That guy doesn't appear to be ordinary. However, some didn't grasp the conversation. Why Mount Hua, though? There's Wudang and Shaolin. If one were to swallow their pride and request help from the Justice faction, there are numerous stronger options. But doesn't that place belong to the 9 great sects? The man simply shrugged his shoulders before clarifying. Will the 5 Shenzhou hegemons allow the 9 great sects to interfere in their affairs? Although Mount Hua is part of the Justice factions, it isn't included in the 9, nor does it belong to any of their sects. Right. The Green Forest King must have concluded that seeking their help was the best option. It's rumored that the leader of the Mount Hua sect only considered this request after much contemplation, solely for people's welfare. Oh. So that's what transpired. Things are unfolding in a peculiar manner. Everyone exchanged glances, aware of how strange it all felt. It does seem logical. Still very peculiar. At first glance, aiding bandits for the benefit of the common people might appear odd, but after analyzing the circumstances, it didn't seem entirely erroneous. Especially those who were familiar with the vile deeds of the great bandits couldn't help but agree. But doesn't that imply they're assisting the bandits? Yes, but Mount Hua isn't quite as idyllic as it seems, correct? What exactly do you mean? The rumor is that the sect leader of Mount Hua proposed a deal to the Green Forest King, saying he would cut the toll tax for using the mountains in exchange for a promise of no future killings. That is so typical of a Taoist sect. It all becomes clear now. Everyone knew it. Bandits could never be completely eliminated. No matter how much one oppressed or attempted to command troops to eliminate them, the bandits would reappear once their backs were turned. This was because those who were weary of witnessing suffering, those who had committed grave misdeeds in their lives, could no longer live a normal one. Inevitably, they would retreat to the mountains and form new bands of bandits. It became evident that, ultimately, it would be less risky to effectively control the existing bandits instead of eliminating them and inviting a more malicious group to power. So, are you saying that Mount Hua isn't aligned with Green Forest, but rather, it plans to quell the rebellion within Green Forest? Exactly. This revelation left everyone in awe. But is that possible? They must possess extraordinary strength if they're strong enough to rebel and overthrow the Green Forest King. Can Mount Hua even stand against them? The man gave the questioner a knowing smile. If we only undertake what we're capable of, how can we refer to that as an agreement? Isn't an agreement, even in the face of adversity, a commitment to act with resolve? Of course. Right. From what I've heard, it seems to be true. Have you recently heard of the Wudang doing anything commendable? This is exactly what a mighty sect should be doing. Such an amazing place. A place that was entirely decimated, unheard of for ages, is now shaking the world in just a few years. As each person shared their thoughts with palpable excitement, the room again erupted into noise. Then, silent amidst the clamor, the man poured the remaining drop of alcohol into his glass and downed it in one go before quietly rising to his feet. Upon exiting the bar, he glanced left and right before merging into the back alley. In that shadowy lane, beggars sprawled on mats. The man inhaled deeply before yelling, "Awaken! You beggars! Hey! Se-hyung, you're back! Ads by Pub Future! Ugh!" The sight of the mat distorted the man's expression. Interiorly, he yearned to sit, yet the fear of soiling his clothes prevented him. What happened? What do you mean, what happened? I have spent my whole life begging for food. Things like this barely faze me. He he he. It must be nice to carelessly mouth off about matters you need not concern yourself with. Enough. The man pushed back the hem of his long garment and sighed. Ugh, I still have to visit 5 more inns today. The branch leader said he'd check in on them all. Why don't you just eat and drink there? If that wasn't the case, I would have already fled. Now, let's proceed. To hold it all like this. This is why I never stray too far from Se-hyung. The beggars swarmed in as the man extracted the food he had concealed in his sleeve, grinning eagerly. Was it all worthwhile? How challenging was it to relay only the facts in a place where we spin tales to inflate our value? Ugh, my mouth aches. Mount Hua has genuinely transformed into a magnificent place. Indeed. The beggars huddled together, munching on their food, all the while marveling at Mount Hua. Despite the beggars' unions and Hongdae Kwang's intentions, those who spread the rumors held Mount Hua in high regard. Could we interpret this as an act of guile? It appears so. Mount Hua didn't make a move without some benefit, right? What kind of fantasy are you living in? Is there any place in this world that operates without self-interest? No matter who they are, people won't make a move without something to gain. What truly matters is if you're willing to take substantial risks. In this regard, Mount Hua stands proud. Well, if it were the Beggars' Union, we wouldn't have budged. Indeed. Regardless, we've invested so much into this undertaking, it should surely prove beneficial in the end. Even if it gets resolved, the problem will persist. Quipped the man in the luxurious robe as he tossed a rice cake into his mouth. If this issue is addressed, no one from the 9 great sects can claim their strength surpasses Mount Hua anymore. That's what this boils down to. Right. Fascinating. Things are getting intriguing now. Those who spread rumors could sense a shift in the world, a rapid change unlike anything before. Perhaps a single event could plunge the Central Plains into chaos. What kind of fools roam around discussing that? Stop being presumptuous and just have a drink. Ugh, I shouldn't have mentioned it. This was unfolding somewhere in the Central Plains. The rumor spread much quicker than Chang Yang had hoped, and suddenly, all eyes were on the green forest. Mount Hua, central to the entire discussion, continued towards the forest without pausing. Hyun Sang, Hyun Young, An-am, and An Jiam shared a subtly complex exchange of glances. Ahum. Clack. Clack. Their cart was rapidly traversing the terrain. Nothing was unusual about the cart. Actually, there were more people in this world who rode carts than horse-drawn carriages. The problem was... quicker. Move swiftly now. What, did you feast on boiled slugs in my absence? Why are you so sluggish? These words spewed forth from his mouth. Ads by Pub Future. Bak Cheon's eyes glowed red. Hey, you rascal. You tried dragging it then. We never trained for this. If we had dragged it, we'd already be at our destination. Quiet. Bak Chon glared at Chang Yang with fiery eyes before turning his head. Gritting his teeth, he shouted out. Run faster. Sasso. If we proceed like this, we'll be exhausted before we arrive. Silence and run. Damn it. The 5 swords of Mount Hua grumbled as they forcefully hauled the cart, occasionally casting scornful glances at the lagging disciples skirting round them. Are you struggling to keep up? So these cowards maneuvering the cart wish to outrun us, yet they falter and lag here, too. Who is that? Who is the sluggard trailing in the back? Indeed. They deserve a harsh reprimand. I, the youngest, am tasked to pull the cart, while the Sehyungs, bearing no weight, are trailing behind. So, try to calm down. Do I look like I am in any state to calm down? Even Hae-yun, who had been dragged into this unreasonably and made to pull the cart from the front, harbored anger in his eyes. The disciples, who weren't burdened with pulling the cart, followed him with all their might. These are people, not beasts of burden. Why are they so swiftly moving? It's astonishing, but it might result in my death. Immaculately clad in robes. Gleaming swords. The sight of individuals moving in clean, precise lines under the sun was breathtaking. This is nonsense. There was no possibility that this sort of thing was present in Mount Hua before now. No sooner had they exited the sect gate than they began a relentless sprint, their feet growing clammy with the exertion. It seemed as though the sky would crumble if they didn't arrive at their destination post-haste. Is this how a warrior behaves? Have you forgotten your training? Exclamation mark. Riding in the cart, Chang Yang delivered verbose lectures that would potentially bore the children to tears soon. Even when dining, we train by fighting with chopsticks. That's merely disrespect for your meal, you fool. What else can you accomplish at the dining table? Enough. Chang Yang barked at them. The last 10 to arrive today will starve. Remember, tardiness equals death. Drown in your own filth. Why have the ghosts abandoned him? Damn this situation. As they watched Chang Yang incessantly instructing his disciples, Hyun Yang and Hyun Sang exchanged awkward smiles. Should we try to intervene? Let him be. Really? Sitting in the sunlit spot, the two cleared their throats and stared into the sky. I am truly grateful to be old. If the same happened to me, I would have fled. The Hyun and Am disciples once again realized that their past hardships prior to Chang Yang's arrival were blessings in disguise. But Hyun Sang glanced over his shoulder. Do they have to run in such a manner? Chang Yang posed this question: why are we hauling trash in the cart? With a sigh, Hyun Sang closed his eyes at the sight of Im Sabayong and his men sprinting alongside the disciples of Mount Hua. I am glad Chang Yang doesn't consider us unworthy. This sentiment filled them with immense gratitude. Truly. The disciples of Mount Hua demonstrated their fervor by covering a distance, which would normally take 15 days, in only 4 days. Rumors spread quickly, but their cart moved even faster, allowing them to reach their destination in record time. Chapter 573. Everyone, halt. Quack. Oh my. Damn it. As soon as Chang Yang's voice came, Mount Hua's disciples fell down. TSK. Descending from the cart, Chang Yang assessed the situation and shook his head disapprovingly. Have you been running so hard that you're panting like a winded dog? His remark caused the disciples' eyes to blaze with resentment. You've got a nerve, you sidelined reprobate. Who are you to critique us from your post on the cart? Hoist him to the wheel. What is the color of the blood that flows in him? The atmosphere was teetering on the brink of rebellion, yet Chang Yang remained indifferent. If you had moved a bit faster, we could have already reached our destination and started resting. You're too slow. Everyone's faces registered shock at his statement, but none could muster a response. They were at a loss for words and preferred not to engage further. What was even more absurd was the reaction of Bak Chan and his group, who had brought a cart instead of Anam. Ugh. Today marks the end. But isn't this more comfortable than our visit to the North Sea? The cart feels so light. Indeed. If it had been like that back then, we wouldn't have endured all this. Tears welled up in the eyes of the Mount Hua disciples as they watched everyone departing while engaged in pleasant conversation. Sasuk, what exactly have you been through? Why do you act as if this is insignificant? Why? Isn't this training excessively harsh, though? Chang Yang frowned at the disciples of Mount Hua, who were panting heavily, but at Novelman at hat. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. If you have eyes, use them. Even the ill managed to come running without hindrance, and here you are, perfectly healthy individuals complaining incessantly about this. Everyone turned towards Im So Baong at his words. Im So Baong received the disciples' gazes with a smile. But soon. Thud. Uke. Green Forest King. Don't pass out on us. He collapsed where he stood. Bian Chong and the Black Knight Tiger, filled with worry, rushed to his side. We were only half of what you are now. Ugh. Chang Yang pounded his chest and shook his head as if deeply affected. You. Barely able to muster enough strength to raise his upper body halfway, Im So Baong mumbled his thoughts half-heartedly, looking as though half his soul had been ripped away. Everyone has lost their minds. Though they said nothing aloud, his two counterparts shared his sentiments. Did a spirit haunt us because we ran too slow? Who begins running at the break of dawn? If horses were forced to race this way, they would have already perished. Let's set aside the matter of running for now. What in the world was that extraordinary speed? What was even more surprising was that despite enduring a forced run intense enough to make even the Green Forest's finest gasp for breath, not a single disciple lagged behind. Mount Hua is indeed a most extraordinary place. Certainly, physical strength wasn't the only factor separating experienced warriors from novices. Still, when it came to this attribute, it was evident that Mount Hua had advanced into a domain that other sects in the Central Plains hadn't reached. Bian Chong and Black Knight Tiger painfully discovered why Im So Baong had gone to great lengths to seek assistance from Mount Hua. There's no spirit left these days, no spirit. Ahum. Ahum indeed. The elders disembarked from the cart, uncomfortably clearing their throats. Ads by Pub Future. Seeing the disciples at their physical limit, the elders felt embarrassed due to their respite on the cart. However, not all shared the sentiment. You. My back aches from the cart's jarring ride. Hyun Young voiced his complaint, his face wrinkled in discomfort. Are we near our destination yet? We're almost there. You. Having spent my entire life without straying too far from Mount Hua, I never realized the Central Plains were so vast. No matter how many times I step out, I see no end. Annam offered a wry smile in response to Hyun Young's words. These words might have been spoken casually, but they clearly reflected the many years they had spent rooted to Mount Hua. So, are we sleeping on the ground again tonight? No. Annam shook his head. Changsha is just beyond the hill. Really? Have we traveled that far? Today, we intend to recuperate at a merchant's guest house. After several days of camping, we should at least warm ourselves before ascending Mount Hyang. Upon hearing this, the disciples of Mount all blinked in surprise. A bed. Warm water. Food that isn't cold. Yet, Chang Yang, who was present, didn't seem pleased at all. Why waste money on a guest house when you can sleep anywhere? Enough. Hyun-young dismissed the comment with a wave of his hand. No matter what the kids might endure, my old back can't. Let's find a comfortable place to rest. If the elder says so, let's find a decent guest house then. The other disciples couldn't hide their surprise, gritting their teeth at how quickly he shifted his stance. That scoundrel really is the worst. But... Meanwhile, An Jiam, who maintained his calm throughout, voiced a logical question. Why didn't you go straight into the city, Se-hyung? Why did you stop here? With a wry smile, An-am looked to Chang-myung and echoed. I was wondering the same thing. He stepped forward and surveyed everyone. Everyone, listen up. Understood. Changsha is a large city. If we enter all at once, we're bound to draw unnecessary attention. The group nodded, showing they understood the point. Presently, it's not an issue if you lounge around, engrossed in your games. However, such behavior should not be exhibited while conducting business. Always bear in mind the words of our sect leader, your actions will reflect upon the reputation of Mount Hua. Everyone shifted silently, and no one offered a reply. What? Chang-myung, the center of everyone's attention, tilted his head in feigned innocence, appearing clueless. Their excitement at entering the guest house was replaced with a gathering storm of concern. Is this acceptable? Perhaps it would be better to simply sleep outdoors. Bak Chan appeared to be of similar sentiment. He voiced his thoughts. Perhaps we should just camp out instead. An-am, hearing this, released a resigned sigh. It's not that I haven't considered that, but there's work to be done. First and foremost, we need to visit the Beggars' Union and check if there have been any issues. Agreed. Bak Chan periodically glanced at Chang-myung. Additionally, all those pulling the cart cast anxious looks in Chang-myung's direction. I feel unsettled. My stomach is in knots. Despite all my thoughts, I can't see this ending well. Ads by Pub Future. But was obtaining the assistance of a spectral entity like Chang-myung even feasible? At that moment, the previously silent Hyun-sang spoke. Nothing to worry about. Ah. A thin smile spread across his lips. Chang-myung, do not leave my side once we set foot in that place. Ah. No, why me? Hee. Let's proceed with this plan. Mount Hua's disciples quietly expressed gratitude for the wise decision. Their previously clouded expressions had cleared. We survived. The elder came through as expected. This is your moment now, you cheeky devil. Once the major issue was addressed, work continued without hindrance. Bak Chan, proceed first and secure an appropriate guest house. With the numerous children present, splitting them between two locations would be suitable. Yes, Sasuk. Now, let's resume. Disciples from Mount Hua confidently proceeded towards Changsha. A massive chair adorned with luxurious animal skins was set on the podium. A man sat cross-legged, leisurely patting the armrest. So long. Decades had passed before they finally claimed the seemingly unimportant chair. Closing the gap from standing beneath to sitting atop the chair had taken long, arduous years despite it being a mere couple of steps. Yet, they knew they couldn't claim it as their own just yet, this wasn't their rightful place. Nevertheless, it will soon be mine. The man was Go Hong, leader of the Great Bandits, one of the formidable 10 Green Forest bandit families. At that pivotal moment, with a grin stretching across his face, he readied himself to throw back his head. Suddenly, the door flew open as 3 men draped in animal skins entered. Bandit leader. Yes, what is it? Those strangers are blatantly disregarding our words. TSK. With barely concealed disdain, Go Hong clicked his tongue and fixed a glare on the man before him. It appears that you've been living a comfortable life in the mountains for too long. You can't even subdue these outlanders. Ugh, it's not that, but these aren't the ordinary ones. Even with their fingernails pulled out and needles stuck into their fingers, they won't even blink. They're stubborn. If we want to get more out of them, we'd have to amputate at least one limb. Is that acceptable? Go Hong's eyes blazed at that. Idiot. The bandits who had walked in immediately retreated under the pressure. If you render them useless, do you honestly believe we alone can operate the Green Forest? Why? I would prefer to simply fail and perish. But they opted for silence. Damn it all. Distortion twisted Go Hong's face. That's why I regret letting that rat escape. If Im So Baong had perished, coaxing the people into talking wouldn't have been this challenging. Regardless of their loyalty, in the end, that loyalty only existed when there was someone to serve. With the right treatment or compensation, people would willingly follow him without needing to perform. But he could not capture Im So Baong. The man had deciphered the situation and vanished. Green Forest King, have you still not discovered his location? Yes. Useless buffoons. Go Hong sprang up from his chair, retrieved the spear lodged behind him, and hurled it. The bandits immediately hunkered down, a spear charged with chi spinning swiftly overhead. His whole body felt numb from fear. Ads by Pub Future. Find him now. Spare no expense. Yes. Go Hong's face twisted in a terrifying manner. If we continue to wait like this, we'll give others an equal opportunity. Had other bandit leaders discovered So Byung first, it would be akin to a dog pursuing a chicken perched on a rooftop. They could assault him with the assistance of the Green Forest King or slay him and seize power as their rightful claim. Regardless, it was not a cause for rejoicing. Let's kill him before the other bandits. Leader. Just then, another person stormed into the room, shouting. What is it now? H has shown up. The individual who burst in, gasping for breath, began to articulate rapidly. The G Green Forest King, So Byung, has revealed himself in Changsha. What? Go Hong's eyes widened in surprise. Where? Changsha. So, just next door. Yes. He dared to appear right under my nose. Yes. Ha 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 ha. Go Hong found the situation so absurd that he fell out of his chair, laughing. Kwang. His foot pulverized the ground as if it were tofu. It appears this man has a death wish. Daring to provoke me so blatantly. Be bandit leader. You must regain your composure. Composure. Please, regain your composure. We're discussing Changsha. It's a city, and the issue will escalate if we head there now. Damn the issue. This man has brazenly confronted me, and you expect me to just observe. He wasn't alone. He brought reinforcements from some unknown Justice faction. Justice faction. Indeed. We're currently verifying their identity. That guy must be out of his mind. To even bring in a Justice faction now. Go Hong exclaimed, gritting his teeth. How many are there? It appears to be over 200. What was that? Approximately 200. Excuse me. Go Hong chuckled roughly. He brought 200 people. Right under my very nose. It appears so. Despite the youthful appearance, they don't seem extraordinary at first glance. Dong Woom. Yes, leader. Round up the men and capture him immediately. But what about the officials? Don't concern yourself with the officials right now. They wouldn't dare confront me once I become the Green Forest King. Understood. There's no certainty that an opportunity like this will come again, so act now. Immediately. Yes, leader. 3 individuals stepped forward. Go Hong resumed his seat. He softly caressed the armrest of his chair with his fingers. That fool appears to have become anxious. It was clear this kind of move was a tactic of someone who had lost their resolve. With the thought of this place soon to be under his control, Go Hong's lips curved into a smile. Chapter 574. Changsha. The expressions on the faces of the passers-by were marred by sorrow. Observing their surroundings, they would engage in idle conversation when they encountered familiar faces. Have you heard the latest news? About Mount Hyong? That's right. Rumor has it that one of the merchant caravans that journeyed up there had suffered a significant loss. I see. How great is the toll this time? At this, everyone collectively released a heavy sigh. If this situation persists, it could lead to a disaster. They mentioned that the merchants who disappeared this time had actually engaged in escort service. You mean, despite having escorts, we lost contact with them? Exactly. Oh no. The prestigious ascending escort service, famed in this region, was powerless to stave off the bandits. That alone spoke volumes. There hasn't been a single issue for decades, why now all of a sudden? I've heard the bandits from Mount Daebile are here. Do you mean those wicked ones? That's impossible. The man subtly glanced around, his anxiety apparent. It was as if he was suspecting the presence of bandits nearby. I can't be certain, but it appears people are vanishing not just from Mount Hyong but other mountains as well. Ugh. What kind of madness is this? When someone goes missing, should NT the officials respond? When have you ever witnessed the authorities taking the initiative in such matters? If they can't manage the tasks occurring right under their noses, it's unsurprising they're unaware of what transpires deep within the mountains. How can we then exist with such thoughts? The situation was so strange that no one could suppress their unease. The problem wasn't confined to the inability to scale Mount Hyong. Changsha was a city nestled between Dongjiang Lake above and Mount Hyong below. With neither unique items for trade nor fertile land, unlike other larger cities, it instead generated income as a crucial trade hub connecting the upper and lower central plains. However, should incidents occur that troubled the visiting merchants, they would have no option but to shelve their business intentions. This could potentially inflict significant harm on the city. Ugh, what in the world is happening? Indeed. If there are bandits festering, there should be someone to solve the problem, but it seems everyone associated with the Justice faction is just standing by. Are these ordinary bandits? These are the most notorious, despised bandits, feared even in the depths of the Green Forest. What kind of Taoist or Justice sect would be too frightened to confront such a small group of bandits? Shush. Are you blind? Quiet down now. We could be overheard. There's no one nearby. Who's going to hear us? The moment the bandits started their rampage, all the sects stopped patrolling. Look over there, the gates are wide open, and not even a rat is visible. Oh. The speaker suddenly fell silent, shocked. IUHU, what is that? Sure enough, crowds started pouring through the seemingly deserted gate. Uniforms of black. And each one had a long sword at their waist. The broad shoulders and well-defined muscles visible beneath the clothing were undoubtedly captivating. Coupled with a determined gaze and firm expression, the word steadfastness naturally sprung to mind. It was as if they commanded the very hearts of people. Who are they? There's so many of them. Even a single individual among them would stand out with their commanding presence. Yet, there were unmistakably over 100 such figures now. The sight shocked many, causing them to bow their heads slightly while only moving to whisper. It appears to be a martial arts sect. Perhaps they are bandits. Are you out of your mind? Why would you even consider them bandits? Be but their physique, they're built like mountains. Apparently, hearing their whispers, the individual at the front of the group turned around with a twisted expression, making everyone flinch and lower their heads. People who had been casually chatting at a distance started to slowly gather. Ads by Pub Future. They were scared, but their curiosity increased after confirming his actions posed no threat, but had novel than it had. With each additional onlooker, the collective insight grew. Ah! That symbol there. Ah, isn't it Mount Hua? Mount Hua. People swiveled their heads to look at the one who had spoken. Why would Mount Hua of Shaanxi be represented here? People didn't readily believe that. If it were truly Mount Hua, wouldn't they have come from Shaanxi, which was approximately 1,500 li from Changsha? Was it even conceivable that not just one, but around over 100 disciples, had journeyed to this location? Indeed, it is true. Haven't you noticed the plum blossom pattern on their chests? There are numerous sects worldwide, but only the Mount Hua sect carries this specific symbol. Subsequently, the city's gaze returned to the Mount Hua sect. As expected, everyone bore the red plum blossom on their chest. Indeed, it must be Mount Hua. But why is Mount Hua here? People exchanged puzzled looks. Could it be because of the bandits? Could that be the case? The Wudang and Shaolin, who were closer, didn't come, but Mount Hua traveled a great distance purposely. To bring the bandits to justice. No, it can't be. Everyone harbored feelings of doubt, disbelief, or faint hope in response to this. But is it likely? The bandits are intimidating, after all. Ha! You're uninformed. Didn't Mount Hua recently defeat both Wudang and Shaolin in the martial arts tournament? And that's not even all of it. Didn't they confront and triumph over the 10,000 people clan recently? The current Mount Hua is ascending like a rocket. Right. Exactly. That's how it was. Slowly, the way people perceived the disciples of Mount Hua changed. And their eyes. Hey, straighten up. Keep your shoulders stiff. Maintain a straight back when walking. Show your strength. Be alert. And say yes. They were giving their all to appear at least a bit imposing. Regardless of the quality of a product or item, if its packaging was substandard, it wouldn't fetch its rightful price. In the past, they might have overlooked such details. Still, now, under Chang Yang's influence, everyone was mindful of their presentation. As a result. Why am I always in the front? Bak Chon, coerced into leading the group, found himself the center of attention. Several voices kept pestering him from behind. Stand up straight. Elevate your chin. What else are you going to use their face for? Now's the time to put it to good use. Lift that chin quickly and show them who's boss. This jerk. Bak Chon was compelled to lift his chin as Chung Myung's hand consistently jabbed his back. His hair fluttered about, revealing his immaculately clean and fair face. Just as he expected, everyone gasped in astonishment. Wow, truly remarkable. H is so handsome. Absolutely extraordinary. Despite the praises streaming in, Bak Chon felt an overwhelming urge to hide himself. Mount Hua is here to save us. They've come to battle the Green Forest. At that moment, numerous voices rang out in a peculiar tone. The excited clamor gave way to applause. Chung Myung beamed. The beggars, at least, did their jobs properly. Perhaps he would have the task of serving a large amount of food outside the guest house today. Ads by Pub Future. Hong Dae Kwang must have ground his teeth as he persuaded all the beggars to disseminate the rumors. If he had carried out his duties diligently on a regular basis, he wouldn't be in for a reprimand either. Basking in the attention, the disciples of Mount Hua arrived at the guest house they had previously reviewed. Arnam asked once more. Everyone is storing their possessions here today. I've rented out the entire guest house to avoid other guests, but still, be mindful not to create a mess for others. Yes. In synchrony, the disciples of Mount Hua made their entry into the guest house. People spoke loudly, commenting on the impressive appearance. At that moment, Chung Myung, who had remained till the end, looked back at them and smiled. Do not fret. We will take care of it immediately. Wow. Hurrah for Mount Hua. Their loud cheers rang through the marketplace. Ah. I can finally breathe. I never realized how comforting warm water could be. Bak Chon wore a wry smile as he looked at his disciples, all clean and tidy after a few days. So many difficulties they faced. The regulars who consistently accompanied him were well acquainted with Chung Myung's antics, so this march was nothing new to them. But for the other disciples, this expedition was a first. Despite all this, not a word of complaint was spoken. Indeed, their silent endurance was commendable. Bak Chon broke the silence with a gentle smile. All of you have worked tirelessly. Bak Chon Sasok. Your efforts have not gone unnoticed. We had no idea Sasok was shouldering such a burden because of Chung Myung. Oh, Sasok. Bak Chon, ready to offer praise, was silenced yet again. Children, do not stare with such eyes. He felt the urge to weep. Considering the circumstances, it wasn't a time for Bak Chon to feel elation or concern. Perhaps Bak Chon is the ultimate victim in all of this, a fact widely known. He let out a soft sigh before stating, Certainly rest is necessary, but refrain from letting down your guard too much, you're being observed by others. Indeed, Sasok. Rest assured. The disciples of Mount Hua all stood with pride. Subsequently, they started discussing amongst themselves. Did you notice their stares earlier? I felt a tremor course through my entire body. Recalling those intense gazes felt akin to experiencing vertigo. Their outings were few and far between, but even on the rare occasions they ventured out for work, they had never encountered such expressions of envy. Ultimately, the individuals least aware of Mount Hua's ascendance were its own disciples. They only now comprehended the extent of their enhanced status, along with the reason the elders had urged them to ponder so deeply over the sect's prestige. I must strive harder. Wunang, Shaolin, they'll all be surpassed. Bak Chon softly smiled, observing the disciples aflame with fervor. You may need to fight tomorrow, so rest today. Keep your mind strong. Yes, Sasok. Don't worry, Sehyung. Yes, I shall be mindful. Finally, after counting the disciples and completing his check, Bak Chon ascended the stairs and headed to the top floor. Knock. I am Bak Chon. Enter. Upon opening the door, he saw a gathered assembly. Ads by Pub Future. In attendance were people, including Hyun Young, Hyun Sang, An Jiam, Anam, and Im Sabaong. At last, Bak Chon, having confirmed Chung Myung's arrival, settled at the far end and began to speak with a clear voice. All the disciples are either eating or resting. We should face any issues now. You've truly endured a lot. But should we really be this loud? Bak Chion's lightly flushed face prompted a chuckle from Im Sabaong. The flashier, the better the items. Why feel embarrassed? Taking down bandits in the name of negotiation is something to take pride in. No, it was all fine, wasn't there? What should be said? What? A bandit? Bak Chon let out a deep sigh. We will prepare to depart tomorrow morning. Ah, hold on a moment. Ha. Bak Chon turned his head at Chung Myung's words. Let's wait for a bit, Sasok. Wait. If we cause this much commotion, the bandits might discover us sooner than anticipated. Then, won't they attack us? Bandits? In this city? Are you suggesting the bandits might come here? Most wouldn't suspect it, but there are potential hostages present. Hostages. Bak Chon shifted his gaze to the hostage, who returned a shy smile. I feel like I'm most valuable as a hostage at this time. Oddly enough, I feel a bit proud, too. It seemed that scoundrel, too, was out of sorts. No, no. The Green Forest King should NT be referred to in such a way. Leaving Bak Chon bewildered, Chang Young turned to Im So-baung. They will come, won't they? Of course they will. Im So-baung shrugged dismissively. Go Hong is impulsive. He just can't sit back and wait for us to make a move. Hold on a minute. Bak Chon surged forward with a shout. If bandits invade the city, it would be utter chaos. This is our cue to take action. TSK. TSK. You are so naive. Chang Young clucked his tongue. The idea is good, boost our reputation by defeating the bandits. But how will people know if we do it in the mountains? The rumor will spread far more fiercely if we defeat them right in front of their eyes. Bak Chon watched him with a sense of despair, his eyes tightly shut. Just what kind of situation has Mount Hua gotten into? Oh, divine entity. Be a Taoist, really a Taoist. Why on earth was this happening? If we're going to execute the plan, be certain of it. Let's wait for a while. Something is sure to happen in just a few days. However, there was one thing that Chang Young had not anticipated. Go Hong turned out to be more impatient than he had expected, and the reach of their intelligence had already extended to them. Do they actually reside here? Dong Woong, a slayer renowned as the Mighty Bear, peered at Changsha's entrance gate from the mountain's base, his smile revealing yellowed teeth. The nature of their madness is unclear, but ill secret that they understand who we are. Their Green Forest bandit comrades joined in the laughter. Forward. Yes. Eyes aflame in the blackness of night.